Marcus didn't even look up from his phone when I confronted him about the late nights. His fingers kept moving across the screen, typing something that made the corner of his mouth twitch upward. "You're overreacting," he said flatly. I stood in our kitchen, holding the dinner I'd kept warm for 2 hours. The same kitchen where we'd laughed over breakfast just last year. The same table where he'd promised we'd grow old together. "I'm not trying to fight. I just want to understand why." He laughed. Not the warm laugh I'd fallen in love with. This one was cold and sharp, designed to cut. "It's embarrassing, honestly," he added, shaking his head like I was a child throwing a tantrum. My hands trembled as I set down the plate. I wanted to argue, to make him see that my concerns were real, but the way he said it, so dismissive, so cruel, made the words die in my throat. I turned to leave the kitchen, my vision blurring slightly. That's when his phone buzzed again on the counter. I glanced back just in time to see the screen light up with a name. "Amber. The preview showed just enough. Can't wait for tonight." I stopped and turned back toward him. "Who's Amber?" My hand reached for his phone, but Marcus moved faster than I'd ever seen him move. He snatched it off the counter, his fingers wrapping tight around it. "A co-worker," he said smoothly, slipping it into his pocket. His face stayed calm, but I noticed his jaw tighten. "Why are you being so paranoid?" "I'm not paranoid. I just saw a message that said." "You saw nothing." He stood up, looking down at me with something cold in his eyes. Something I'd never seen before. "You don't trust me? That's your problem, not mine." The words hit me like a slap. He was turning this around, making me the villain for asking a simple question. He pulled the phone back out, typed something quickly, and angled the screen just slightly away from me. But not quite enough. I caught a glimpse of his message before he hit send. "She suspects something, LOL." My stomach dropped to the floor. He looked up at me and smiled. Actually smiled. "See? Just work stuff. You really need to relax." I didn't argue, didn't cry, didn't demand to see his phone. I just nodded slowly and told him he was right. Then I walked away to our bedroom. Inside, something shifted. Something went quiet and cold and perfectly still. "My name is Bellamy Maya. I'm 32 years old. I've been married to Marcus for 5 years. And in that moment, standing in our bedroom, listening to him laugh on the phone in the living room, I realized something important. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. And I wasn't going to let him make me believe I was. That night, I lay in bed next to Marcus and waited. I listened to his breathing slow and deepen, watched his chest rise and fall in the rhythm of sleep. His phone sat on the nightstand between us, face down like it always was now. He used to leave it face up, used to not care if I glanced at his notifications. When I was certain he was asleep, I reached over carefully. My fingers trembled as they closed around the phone. The screen lit up, asking for his passcode. I typed in our anniversary date, the one he'd never changed. It unlocked. My hands shook as I opened his messages and found Amber's name. The thread was long, much longer than it should have been for a co-worker. I scrolled to the top, watching weeks of messages load onto the screen. Photos appeared, pictures I'd never seen. Inside jokes I didn't understand, plans for dinners and late-night meetings Marcus had never mentioned. There was an intimacy in these messages that made my throat tighten. "Missing you already." One said, sent the morning after Marcus told me he'd worked late at the office. "Can't stop thinking about last weekend." Read another, last weekend, when he'd told me he was at a work conference in another city. I scrolled faster, my heart pounding so hard I was afraid the sound might wake him. The messages went back months. How had I missed this? How had I been so blind? My thumb moved frantically through message after message, each one worse than the last. Then I stopped scrolling completely. The contact name said Amber, but I recognized the phone number. I'd seen it dozens of times before, saved under a different name in my own phone. My free hand flew to my mouth to stop the gasp that tried to escape. The number belonged to Kelly, my friend Kelly, the woman who'd been to our home for dinner parties, who'd congratulated us on our 5th anniversary last month, who'd hugged me and told me I was lucky to have found someone like Marcus. I scrolled back through the messages with new understanding. The inside jokes made sense now. They were about me, about our life, about things only someone close to us would know. They'd been careful using a fake name in his contacts, but they'd also gotten comfortable. Sloppy. I kept scrolling backward through time, past Valentine's Day, past Christmas, past my birthday, when Marcus had seemed distracted and distant. The messages went back at least 6 months, maybe longer. Then I saw it, my name, right there in their conversation. I stopped breathing as I read the exchange from 2 months ago. Kelly, think she knows? Marcus, no way. She's too emotional to notice anything real. Kelly, you sure? Marcus, she'd fall apart without me. It's actually kind of sad. They were laughing about me, mocking me, using my love as a weapon. I forced myself to keep reading even though every word felt like a knife twisting deeper. She asked about the late nights Marcus had written just last week. Kelly, what did you tell her? Marcus, that she's overreacting. She believed it, LOL. Kelly, she always does. You've got her so well trained. The casual cruelty of it stunned me into silence. This wasn't just an affair. This was calculated, planned. They'd been using my trust, my love, my belief in our marriage as tools to deceive me. I scrolled further, my hands shaking harder now. Then I saw something that changed everything. Screenshots of our bank statements, of our savings account, messages about money. Transferred another $500 today. Marcus had written 3 weeks ago. She doesn't check the account often enough to notice. Kelly, perfect. We're almost there. Marcus, just need a bit more time. Kelly, how much total now? Marcus, close to $15,000. Plus the separate account she doesn't know about. My hands went completely numb. I almost dropped the phone onto Marcus's sleeping chest. Then I saw one more message. The worst one yet. Marcus, once the house is sorted, we're free. I kept reading, scrolling through weeks of financial planning I'd known nothing about. The messages about money went back over a month. Marcus had been moving funds from our joint account into somewhere else, somewhere I couldn't see. Got another $1,200 out yesterday. He'd written. Told her the car needed major repairs. There had been no car repairs. I remembered that day clearly. Marcus had come home and explained some complicated engine problem I didn't understand. I'd trusted him completely when he said it cost over $1,000. Kelly, you're so good at this. Marcus, she makes it easy, never questions anything. I scrolled further and found more. Payments I didn't recognize. Gifts he'd bought that I'd never received. Trips he'd taken that he'd claimed were for work. Hotel reservations. Expensive dinners. Concert tickets. Everything started connecting in my mind like puzzle pieces finally clicking into place. Then I found the message that made my blood turn to ice. Lawyer confirmed it. Marcus had written to Kelly. Once we file, the house will be contested. But since her name is on the deed first, and she paid the down payment, I need to show I contributed financially. I've been keeping all the receipts. Kelly, smart thinking. Marcus, few more months, and we're done. Let her think everything's fine. Until then, I locked the phone with trembling fingers and set it back exactly where Marcus had left it. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling as my entire life rearranged itself in my mind. 5 years ago, Marcus had swept me off my feet. Or had he just been playing a long game even then? I thought about everything I'd sacrificed. The job offer in another state I'd turned down so Marcus could stay near his family. My savings, almost $40,000, that I'd use for the down payment on this house when his credit wasn't good enough to qualify a loan. I'd supported him through 2 job changes, paying most of our bills while he figured out his career path. I believed we were building a life together, a future, a partnership, but he'd been building an exit strategy, a way to leave me with nothing while taking everything we'd created. And Kelly had never been my friend. She'd been gathering information, studying me, learning my weaknesses so they could exploit them. I felt physically sick. The next morning, after Marcus left for work, I opened my laptop and logged into our joint bank account with shaking hands. The balance made me close my eyes and take 3 deep breaths. We should have had nearly $30,000 in savings. We'd been adding money every month for years, building our emergency fund, planning for the future Marcus had promised me. The balance showed $11,247. I clicked through the transaction history, watching months of careful withdrawals scroll past. Always amounts small enough that I wouldn't notice during a quick check. 200 here, 500 there, sometimes 1,000, always labeled with innocent explanations. Car repair, work expense reimbursement, family emergency. There had been no emergencies, just systematic theft. I checked the mortgage account next. We were barely current. Marcus had been paying only the minimum, not the extra payments we'd agreed on to build equity faster. Then I found something that made my hands shake even harder. A credit card account I'd never seen before. It was in both our names, meaning I was legally responsible for it too. The balance was $8,000. I clicked through the charges. Jewelry I'd never received. Hotel stays in cities Marcus had visited for work. Restaurants I'd never been to. Gifts for someone who wasn't me. He'd been spending our money, hiding it from me, and making me responsible for his lies. This wasn't just adultery. This was financial abuse. That night, I stared at Marcus's sleeping face in the dim light from the street lamp outside. He looked peaceful, innocent, like a man with nothing to hide. This man thought I would crumble when he finally left, thought I'd be too weak, too emotional, too dependent on him to fight back. He'd said it himself in those messages to Kelly. She'd fall apart without me. Something cold and clear settled over me, something I'd never felt before in my life. He was wrong about me, completely wrong. I slipped quietly out of bed and took his phone to the living room. I'd memorized his passcode now, could unlock it without even thinking. I opened the message thread with Kelly and started taking screenshots. Every single message, every photo they'd shared, every plan they'd made behind my back. My phone's camera roll filled with evidence, messages about money, conversations about me, their timeline, their plans, everything. I screenshotted the bank statements Marcus had sent her, the photos of receipts, every piece of proof I could find. When I finished, I had over 200 screenshots organized by date. Then I uploaded everything to 3 different cloud storage accounts, just to be safe. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years. As soon as Marcus left for his office, I got to work. I created folders on my laptop, bank statements in one, message screenshots in another, credit card information, mortgage documents, tax returns, everything organized, labeled, and backed up. I made copies of everything onto 2 different external hard drives. I printed out the most damaging messages and put them in a folder I hid in my car. By noon, I had a complete picture of what Marcus and Kelly had been doing. A clear timeline, undeniable evidence, proof that would hold up anywhere. At exactly 1 p.m., I called a divorce lawyer whose name I'd found through an online search. My hands shook as I dialed the number. Law offices of Patricia Holmes, a professional voice answered. "I need to speak with someone about filing for divorce," I said. My voice came out stronger and steadier than I expected. "Can you come in this afternoon? We have an opening at 3. I could. I did. Patricia Holmes was a woman in her 50s with sharp, intelligent eyes and an immaculately organized desk. She listened to my entire story without interrupting once, taking careful notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she set down her pen and leaned forward. "Maya," she said firmly, "you're not overreacting. You're underprepared. But we're going to fix that." Patricia spread my printed evidence across her conference table, examining each screenshot and document with practiced eyes. "This is excellent," she said. "Better than excellent. Most people come to me with suspicions and hurt feelings. You came with proof." She explained what Marcus had been doing in precise legal terms: dissipation of marital assets, financial fraud, breach of fiduciary duty. Each phrase felt like a weapon I could use. "The money he moved is still marital property," Patricia explained. "We can trace every dollar and make him account for it." She asked detailed questions about our house. I explained that I'd paid the entire down payment from my savings before we got married. My name went on the deed first. Patricia smiled for the first time. That's significant leverage. She outlined a strategy that made my heart race. First, I needed to secure my own finances immediately, open a separate bank account, and redirect my paychecks. Document everything Marcus did. Keep detailed records. "Don't confront him yet," she warned. "If you do, he'll hide assets and get defensive. We need him comfortable and careless." Second, gather more evidence. Record conversations if possible. Our state allowed one-party consent for recordings. Third, be patient. "Anger is natural and valid," Patricia said, "but revenge is strategic. We're going to protect you first, then make sure he can't take what's rightfully yours." I left her office 3 hours later with a clear plan, a signed retainer agreement, and something I hadn't felt in weeks: control. Over the next 2 weeks, I followed Patricia's instructions exactly. I opened a new checking account at a completely different bank, changed my direct deposit. So my paychecks went there instead of our joint account. I moved exactly half of what remained in our joint savings into my new account. Patricia assured me I was legally entitled to it. I documented everything, photographed receipts Marcus left lying around, noted the exact dates and times he claimed to be working late, tracked every inconsistency in his stories. Patricia had been absolutely right about one thing: Marcus had been sloppy, arrogant in his certainty that I'd never check up on him. He'd used our joint credit card for everything: romantic dinners with Kelly, weekend hotel stays, expensive gifts. The statements laid it all out in black and white, itemized and dated. He'd been so confident I would never look. I found our house deed and made 3 copies, located our marriage certificate, gathered 5 years of tax returns, everything that proved what I'd contributed to our life together. Then Patricia called with even better news. "I've been reviewing his employment records through Discovery," she said. "Did you know his last raise was significantly larger than he told you?" I hadn't known. Of course I hadn't. He's been depositing the difference into a separate account. We're going to get access to all of it. For the first time since finding those messages, I smiled. That evening, I came home and cooked Marcus's favorite meal. I wore the dress he always said he loved. I smiled warmly when he walked through the door. "Wow," he said, genuinely surprised. "What's all this for?" "No special reason. I said softly. I just wanted to do something nice for you. He relaxed immediately, kissed my cheek, pulled me into a hug, and told me he'd been worried about me lately. You seem so much better, he said over dinner. More like yourself. Less stressed out. I took your advice. I told him. I stopped overreacting to every little thing. His face lit up with pride. I'm really glad to hear that, Maya. I knew you'd come around eventually. After dinner, Marcus settled onto the couch with his phone. I sat in the nearby chair with my laptop, pretending to catch up on emails. He started texting Kelly right in front of me. I could see him smiling at whatever she was saying. Then his phone rang. He answered it on speaker without even hesitating. Hey, beautiful. Kelly's voice filled our living room. Hey, Marcus said casually. We still good for tomorrow night? Definitely. I can't wait. She paused. Is she there? Marcus glanced at me. I kept my eyes on my laptop screen, my face neutral. He actually laughed. Yeah, but don't worry. She's completely oblivious. I typed nonsense into my laptop while I listened to them talk. How much longer do you think? Kelly asked. Maybe a few more weeks. Marcus said, completely relaxed. I want to wait until after her birthday next month. Don't want to seem too heartless, you know? How thoughtful of him, I thought. My fingers kept moving across the keyboard, like I was absorbed in work. They talked for 20 minutes about their plans to travel together, about the apartment Kelly was looking at for them, about how excited she was to finally stop hiding and sneaking around. Marcus complained about me, called me clingy and overly emotional, said I was exhausting to deal with sometimes. Kelly laughed and agreed. The whole time, I sat 5 feet away from him. When he hung up, he came over and kissed the top of my head. Sorry about that work call. You know how it is. No problem, I said sweetly. I'd heard everything I needed to hear. The next day, while Marcus was at work, I downloaded a voice recording app on my phone. Patricia had confirmed our state was one-party consent. I could legally record any conversation I was part of. Over the following week, I recorded 3 separate conversations where Marcus discussed his plans with Kelly over the phone, where he admitted to moving money, where he laughed about keeping me in the dark. I sent everything to Patricia immediately. Then I went to the bank and had my name removed from that joint credit card, the one with $8,000 in charges I'd never made. Patricia had confirmed I could do this legally. His debt, his responsibility. The following Friday, Marcus suggested we go out for a nice dinner. He seemed relaxed and happy, talking about his week at work as we drove to an upscale restaurant downtown. When our meal ended, the server brought the check. Marcus handed over his credit card without even glancing at the total. The server returned a few minutes later, looking uncomfortable. I'm sorry, sir, but this card has been declined. Marcus's confident smile faltered. That's impossible. There must be an error. Can you run it again? She did. It declined a second time. There's definitely something wrong with your system, Marcus said, his voice tight. He pulled out another card, our joint credit card. The server ran it and came back looking even more apologetic. I'm sorry, but this one says the account has been restricted. I watched the color drain from his face, watched confidence crack into confusion and then embarrassment. I'll get this one, I said calmly, pulling out my new credit card. In the car, Marcus immediately called the credit card company. I could hear the automated system asking him to verify his identity. When he finally reached a representative, I listened to half of a conversation that made his hands grip the steering wheel tighter and tighter. What do you mean removed from the account? He said. That's impossible. The representative's muffled voice explained something. She did what? Marcus's voice was dangerous now. When we got home, he went straight to the computer. Marcus logged into our bank accounts with shaking hands. I watched from the doorway as he stared at the screen. "Where's all the money?" he demanded, turning to look at me. I kept my voice perfectly even. I moved my portion to a separate account. "Your portion?" His voice rose. "That's our money, our joint account." "Exactly," I said calmly. "Our money." So I took my half of what was left. His face turned red. "You can't just do that. That's not how this works." "Actually, according to the bank manager I spoke with, it's exactly how it works. I'm entitled to 50% of joint marital funds." He pulled up bank statements, his eyes widening as he saw how much I'd taken. Then he saw the credit card balance, his balance now, since I'd removed myself. "You had no right." His voice shook with rage or panic. I couldn't tell which. "I had every right. It's my money too." He started making frantic phone calls. To the bank, to his credit card company, to anyone who would listen. Each conversation ended the same way. I had done nothing illegal. "This is insane," he shouted, slamming his phone down. "Why would you do this? I need that money." "For what?" I asked innocently. "Car repairs? Family emergencies." His face went completely pale. I tilted my head slightly and used his own words against him. "You're overreacting, Marcus. It's embarrassing, honestly." For the first time since I'd known him, he looked genuinely afraid. Over the next few days, Marcus's panic grew and grew. He kept checking the bank accounts as if the money might magically reappear. He called me at work multiple times a day, demanding that I transfer the funds back immediately. "We need to talk about this," he kept saying. "We will," I replied each time. "When I'm ready." Kelly started messaging him constantly. I could tell by how often his phone buzzed and how stressed he looked every time he checked it. He started taking calls in the bathroom with the door closed, his voice low and urgent. One evening, he came to me looking completely defeated. "Maya, I need your help," he said. The arrogance was gone from his voice. "I'm having some serious cash flow problems." I looked up from the book I was reading. "What kind of problems?" "Just unexpected expenses that came up. Could you loan me a few thousand? Just until my next paycheck clears." "What unexpected expenses?" I asked. He fumbled for an answer, his eyes darting away from mine. "Car stuff. Some bills I forgot about. You know how it is." I let the silence stretch between us, let him squirm and sweat. Finally, I spoke. "You're overreacting. It's embarrassing." His expression changed completely. For the first time since we'd met, Marcus looked at me and saw a stranger. "What's going on with you?" he asked quietly. I smiled. "Nothing at all." Why would anything be going on? The messages between Marcus and Kelly grew more and more desperate. I knew this because Patricia had already subpoenaed his phone records weeks ago. Kelly was panicking. The money Marcus had been giving her had completely stopped. All the plans they'd made were falling apart. "What's happening?" she texted him. "You said we were leaving soon. You promised." "Marcus, I know. Things are just complicated right now." "Kelly, complicated how?" "You've been saying that for weeks." "I've been waiting for months, Marcus." "Marcus, Maya is acting really strange. I think she might know something." "Kelly, then just tell her. Get it over with, and we can move on." "Marcus, I can't yet. The timing isn't right with the house situation." "Kelly, I'm done waiting. If you don't tell her by this Friday, I'm telling her myself. I'm done hiding." "Marcus, you can't do that. You'll ruin everything we've planned." "Kelly, everything is already ruined. At least this way I get some satisfaction." Patricia called me that same afternoon. "The process server is ready," she said. "He'll deliver the divorce papers to Marcus at his office tomorrow afternoon. Are you ready for this?" I took a deep breath. I'd been preparing for weeks. "I'm ready." I told her. I'd been ready for a long time. The process server found Marcus at his office on Thursday at 2:30 p.m. Patricia texted me, "Papers delivered." Marcus came home 3 hours later. His face was white. His hands were shaking. He held the divorce petition like it might explode. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice breaking. I was sitting calmly on the couch, a book in my lap. I'd practiced this moment in my mind 100 times. "Divorce papers," I said simply. "I can see that." He moved closer, waving the papers at me. "But why? What's happening? Where is this coming from?" "I think you know exactly why, Marcus." He started talking fast, making excuses, trying to explain things that couldn't be explained. His words tumbled over each other, making less and less sense. "This is crazy," he said. "We can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can work through whatever you think is wrong. We can—" "I don't want to work through anything," I interrupted. "But why?" he asked desperately. I just looked at him. Let him see in my eyes that I knew everything. Let him understand exactly what I'd discovered. His phone started ringing. Kelly's name flashed on the screen. He stared at it, not answering. It rang again, and again, and again. "You should probably get that," I said quietly. Instead, he sat down heavily on the chair across from me, crushing the divorce papers in his fist. "Is there someone else?" he asked. I almost laughed out loud. Over the next week, Marcus tried everything he could think of. Apologies, promises to change, tears, anger, bargaining. Nothing worked. Nothing could work. Kelly started calling me directly. I never answered. Then the screenshots started spreading. Not from me. I'd been extremely careful. But Kelly, furious at Marcus for abandoning her, had started telling people. Mutual friends, people from his office, anyone who would listen. My phone exploded with messages. "Oh my God, is it true? Are you okay? I can't believe this." I always knew something was off about Marcus. People who'd known us as a couple started choosing sides. Most of them chose mine once they saw the evidence. The cruel messages about me. The financial records showing what Marcus had stolen. Marcus's parents called him. I know because I could hear him trying to explain himself through the bedroom door. Then his mother called me to apologize and tell me she was horrified by her son's behavior. His boss requested a formal meeting about the inappropriate workplace relationship with Kelly that Marcus had failed to disclose. Everything Marcus had built started crumbling around him. Friends stopped returning his calls. His social media went silent. Meanwhile, I found myself surrounded by real support, actual friends, people who genuinely cared about me, not about us as a couple. I never trusted him. One friend told me, "You deserve so much better," said another. They were absolutely right. The day we sat down for settlement negotiations, I brought everything. Every screenshot, every bank statement, every recording, every piece of evidence I'd carefully gathered and organized. I watched Marcus's face as Patricia slid the thick folder across the conference table. Watched him realize that I'd known everything for weeks, that I'd been planning and preparing while he thought I was falling apart. "Your client," Patricia said to Marcus's overwhelmed-looking lawyer, "has been systematically hiding marital assets, conducting an extramarital affair, and committing financial fraud against my client for months." Marcus's lawyer shuffled nervously through the papers. "We have documented proof," Patricia continued, "of dissipation of marital assets totaling over $18,000. Undisclosed credit card debt of $8,000 that he fraudulently put in both names. Clear evidence of an ongoing affair. And multiple recordings of your client explicitly discussing his plans to deceive my client regarding community property. These recordings," the lawyer started weakly, "are completely legal in this state," Patricia interrupted smoothly. "One-party consent, and the text messages were obtained from equipment my client had legal access to during the marriage. Marcus stared at me from across the table. "You planned all of this," he said. "I documented the truth. I corrected him. This whole time, you were just pretending? Acting exactly like you were?" I said calmly. The negotiations lasted 3 tense hours. Marcus wanted to fight. I could see it in his clenched jaw, his rigid posture, but his lawyer kept whispering to him, showing him the evidence, explaining in harsh terms exactly how badly this would go if we ended up in court. The final settlement was clear. The house stayed mine. I'd paid the down payment entirely from my premarital savings, and my name was on the deed first. Marcus would receive nothing from the equity. The money I'd moved from the joint account was legally mine. The money Marcus had hidden would be split 50-50, and he owed me reimbursement for half of everything he'd already spent on Kelly. The credit card debt was entirely his responsibility. I had proof I hadn't made any of those charges. He would pay my legal fees as the penalty for financial fraud. In the end, Marcus walked away with his car, his personal belongings, his secret debt, and a payment plan to reimburse me for the money he'd stolen. Everything he'd planned to take from me stayed exactly where it belonged. "This isn't fair," he said as he signed the final papers with shaking hands. Patricia raised one eyebrow. "Fair would be criminal charges for fraud and theft. This is mercy." He signed. Through the conference room window, I could see Kelly waiting for him in the parking lot. I watched them argue on the sidewalk. She thought she was getting a man with money and a house. Instead, she got someone who had to move back in with his parents and rebuild his entire life from nothing. They deserved each other. 6 months passed like water flowing downstream. I stayed in the house and made it fully mine. Painted the bedroom the deep blue color I'd always wanted, but Marcus had vetoed. Adopted a rescue dog named Bailey. Took up photography and yoga, hobbies I'd abandoned when I was too busy managing Marcus's life. Work offered me the promotion I'd been hoping for. I accepted it immediately. It even came with a small relocation to the branch in the city I'd wanted to move to years ago, the opportunity I'd turned down for Marcus. I started therapy and slowly learned to trust my instincts again. Learned that my concerns had never been overreactions. They'd been accurate warnings that I'd let Marcus convince me to ignore. Old friends from that chapter of my life gradually faded away, and new people came into my world. People who chose me for myself, not because I came as part of a package deal. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Marcus and Kelly had broken up badly, that Marcus had moved back in with his parents, that he was struggling both financially and professionally after word of the affair spread through his company. When I heard the news, I felt absolutely nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, no pity. He was simply a closed chapter, a finished book, done. I was writing something entirely new now, something that belonged only to me. 1 year after I found those messages, I was having coffee with a friend when I spotted Marcus across the street. He was getting out of an old, beat-up car, looking tired and older than he should have. He saw me at the same moment, started to cross the street toward me. I could have left, could have avoided the conversation entirely, but I didn't need to anymore. "Can we talk?" he asked when he reached my table. "Just for a minute." "About what?" "About everything. About what happened between us." My friend started to stand up, but I gestured for her to stay. "What do you want to say?" I asked Marcus. He fumbled with his words, trying to explain himself, trying to make me understand his choices and his mistakes, trying to get me to forgive him, to absolve him of his guilt. "I never meant to hurt you," he finished quietly. "Yes, you did," I said calmly. "You planned it carefully. You laughed about it with her. You called me embarrassing for noticing the truth. He flinched like I'd slapped him. I'm not angry anymore. I continued. I'm just grateful I found out when I did. Grateful I didn't waste more years. I made a terrible mistake, he said. You made hundreds of mistakes. And you're still making them if you think this conversation is about giving you closure. I stood up to leave. Wait, he said desperately. I wanted you to know I'm sorry. Really sorry. I looked at him one final time. This man who'd once convinced me I was crazy for trusting my own instincts, who'd made me doubt my own reality. I wasn't overreacting, Marcus. I said, clearly, I just needed the truth to stop pretending I didn't see it. I walked away with my friend and never looked back.